The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests and don't necessarily reflect the views of WOWT.
Here we are once again with another episode of Becca's Talking. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like the Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Becca's Talking YouTube channel, and join us every week where we have a new guest, a new topic, something you never know what's going to be next. And this one is very newsworthy, and it's been newsworthy now for a decade or more, trying to get medical marijuana legalized in Nebraska. Now, as you know, the voters voted for it, 71%. They said, yeah, we want it. The governor has done everything he can in his power to stop this, to stymie it, to negate the will of the people. And I've got with me right now a gentleman by the name of Dominic Gillen. And I've known Dominic, I've known you, maybe 12, 13 years or so? I mean, you were one of the first podcasts I did way back when. Mm-hmm. You and your wife, Shelley, with your son, Will, who is severely epileptic.
Yes. He has something called Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, which means he has 4 or 5 different seizure types. A lot of kids with epilepsy will have one specific type, but for Will, he has 3 or 4 or 5 different kinds of seizures at different times.
So you've been on the front line trying to get medical marijuana passed because medical marijuana has been proven to help people like Will.
Yes, we know from having conversations with people in other states, the kids that have LGS is what Will has, that medical cannabis has had positive impacts. Not necessarily everybody, and we've never been under the illusion that it was a magic bullet.
Well, no medicine. I mean, I'm a cancer survivor, but not every cancer drug, stops the cancer. Exactly. I mean, everybody's different.
Well, in different doses, for different people and all those kinds of different things. And so we've just always wanted to have that option with our doctors to be able to try that, to see if it has, rather than putting him on more pharmaceuticals. And just as a quick example, he had his teeth cleaned, which we do every year, and he has to be put under by it. And his dentist came in after cleaning him this time, and he had to pull 5 teeth. And he's never pulled a tooth before. And he said, first initial reaction from Shelley and I is, what are we doing wrong? And he said, absolutely nothing. He said, what's the problem is, it's all the seizure medications that he's been on. It literally wears away at the enamel of his teeth. And he said, I've seen it so many times because he works on a lot of kids like Will, and pediatrics and young adults. And so, there's an unintended consequence of all the seizure meds that he's on, and cannabis wouldn't do that. So. Yeah.
And by the way, okay, so now there's a reason why Dominic is here, and not Krista Edders. Krista Edders, who is the person who spearheaded all of the petition drives. Mm-hmm. You've seen Krista Edders on the news and that, but Krista Edders and the people that organized the medical marijuana initiative are still fighting lawsuits from the governor, from the state. That are going after them. So they're not going to say anything until all the lawsuits are settled. Dominic, on the other hand, though, has been one of the hardest workers out there for this.
Well,
you were out there getting petitions signed. You've gone and you've spoken to the governor, both Governor Ricketts and Governor Pillen.
Tried to talk to Governor Pillen. He, a couple times on his radio show, he told me to give him his number and he'd call. They would set up an appointment. But what I ended up with was a call saying, "Hey, he can't meet with you because he's too busy, but we'll put you in touch with such and such and so and so." And so, we did meet with Governor Ricketts. A group of us did, but haven't had the opportunity with Governor Pillen.
When you meet with Governor Ricketts and try to meet with the governor, I mean, like I said, I saw the video. One thing about Dominic has become somewhat media savvy over the years of doing this, in that you had another TV station recorded you crawling into the governor's show.
Yeah, we had talked about a number of, we had wanted people to call in, and the news media, they found out that we were going to do that, and they asked if they could come over while his show was on. As I tried to get on, I honestly didn't think I'd get on because of my interaction with him last month. He got pretty testy with me, mm-hmm. and but I made it through, and the TV happened to be there when he hung up on me. So, and I took some grief for that from some people locally.
Why?
Because I wasn't a very good call-in person, because you're supposed to just call in, ask a question, and be done. what unfortunately some people don't understand is the governor's show, there's a little bit of give and take usually. Normally when you get in, you can ask a question or ask a follow-up. And that was what I was trying to do. And he, I think, understood what I was doing and just did not want me to ask the last question. Or make the last point.
And your last point was going to be what?
Well, my initial point was just to read him something from LB 77, which was the concealed carry law, which has been in the public as a result of the Terrence Crawford situation. And I thought, well, I know that's something he's supportive of. I'm sure he probably is aware of it. Well, I read one line from it and he said, I'm not a lawyer and I don't understand. I'm not sure what you're talking about, what law. And he said, we're not going to, and then he just hung up. And my point was going to be, here's what I read to him from the carry law. I wanted to read a line then from the medical cannabis law that's already on the books and in statute and say, if you can't change one, how can you change the other? Because what they've done with the commission is literally taken what was in Initiative 437, which when it was passed went into law as it was written on the initiative page or on the petitions, and they've literally changed things in the rules that they wrote that are different. They changed things that are literally already in statute, which is they can't do.
All right, let's start at the beginning here now, because before we get to all of this, because this has been a long process. Mm-hmm. There have been, 3 petition drives?
Yeah, yes. One successful, thrown out by the Supreme Court for single subject rule. The next one, we were not able to gather enough signatures. And then this last drive, which we were successful and got it on the ballot.
Let's talk about the first one, okay? Because the petition, it got past the Secretary of State, it got past the Attorney General, right? Mm-hmm. But then the Supreme Court said no to it, said that it wasn't valid. And I hate to be a conspiracy guy. I mean, but did somebody get to the Supreme Court? I mean, was that a legitimate ruling on their part when everybody else looked at it and said?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tom. I'm not a lawyer. I can tell you that the vote it was 5-2 on that. And Nebraska does have a single subject rule, meaning that a petition can only entertain one subject. It can't be construed as having voting on 2 different things or signing for 2 different things. What I will tell you is one of those who voted in favor of allowing the petition to go through was appointed by a Republican, Judge Papik, and he wrote in his dissent, and I can't remember specifically, but he said what you've done with this decision is thrown the whole petition process into limbo. So, I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Is that sort of what they want to do, do you think? Are they trying to get rid of the petition process in Nebraska with the lawsuits and the hassle that people are going through?
Well, you know what? It seems to me that that's what they're trying to do. There was a hearing last week about a legislative resolution that they're trying to put more limitations on the petition process. And what's unfortunate is Nebraska is completely unique in its unicameral system, and the people are supposed to be the second house. So you, in essence, have one house putting rules on the other one that make it almost impossible to do. And I think it's sad because I'm not sure that people really understand what the second house really is. When you have senators who say that the will of the people is not all that it's cracked up to be, and those kinds of comments that have been made by senators, it makes you really wonder, do they understand? Do they even know who George W. Norris is in the first thing? I taught school for 29 years and I had to teach about him as a requirement every January. He's like a father of the unicameral, but it seems that way. It appears that they're trying to put a stranglehold on it. And what's interesting is there are 8 petitions out right now. None of them are from any kind of a progressive or a Democrat group. So any limitations they put on them are going to be putting limitations on petitions that one party is probably supporting over the other.
Well, the Ricketts family, if there's something they really want, like the death penalty, they'll put the money behind it to get that on the ballot. And indeed, has there been money put in by the Ricketts family to oppose medical marijuana?
Not sure. I honestly don't know whether there has specifically or not. I would assume that if there were, that it's not something that's directly attributable to them.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. But I'm speaking totally as a, not
Okay, so the first one that got through, but until the Supreme Court said no, first one that got through, you had financial backers that helped you go and pay petitioners and get it out there, because to actually get the petition signed takes a lot of work and effort, and you got to have some money behind it to get it done.
Absolutely.
After that one failed, you tried again, and your donors, one of them died, I believe, right?
Yes, one of them had died in a plane crash, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but that source of money went away, and then it became pretty much the last two have been volunteer, and almost completely volunteer, and then trying to raise as much money as we can to help offset some of the costs from people who want to help.
The second time you didn't get enough signatures in time, all that. But then this last time, and he said mostly volunteers. Because I've met a lot of these people. They were people that had ailments that could benefit from medical marijuana. And although we're dealing with epilepsy here with your son Will, medical marijuana helps an awful lot of other people as well, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, PTSD. Cancer. There's a very long list, and there's even the legislature with the rules, or the commission with the rules has a list of different ailments that they would put underneath of it. Although they were excluding PTSD in the bill that was trying to get passed last year. So.
Yeah, they put some restrictions on it so that not everybody that could benefit from medical marijuana would be able to get medical marijuana.
Absolutely.
But this last time you did. You went and you got the volunteers, and these were people in many cases who just had a sick child. They were sick themselves. Maybe somebody else in their family had cancer or whatever, and they wanted to get this done. And not only did you have more than enough signatures for the initiative, but then when it came to the vote, 71% of the people said, yeah, we want 71% of Nebraskans can't even agree on whether or not Nebraska football is good or not. I mean, 71% of Nebraskans can't agree on anything. Rural and urban, they can't agree on anything, but yet they all agreed on this.
Well, and the interesting thing is there's one group of people in the state that want to make it a political issue, and the vote was an obvious statement that this isn't about politics, that this is a nonpartisan issue. Republicans had to vote in that 71% just as well as Democrats or independents had to vote. This issue really it's not a political issue. It's a healthcare issue. And that's how people look at it. And people are frustrated with what the foot dragging that's going on now. And I will say the petition drive, they did some analysis, and I believe the numbers were about 93% of the signatures that were gathered for this latest petition were gathered by volunteers, non-paid circulators. We did have a little bit of money, and there were some paid circulators, which accounted for about 7% of the 100% of the signatures. But if you were to look at any of the other petitions, other than maybe the school voucher, the school choice, not the school choice one, but the Save Our Schools one, which there were a lot of teachers and educators who were helping to collect signatures on that. But the other petitions were all people who were coming in from out of state, and they're paying them. And those cost literally millions and millions of dollars in order to bring those companies in and collect signatures. And normally it's at a very, very low validation rate.
Let's talk about the petition process here on this last time around, because after it got passed, it got on the ballot, 71% of the people voted, but the Attorney General and the Governor's office filed lawsuits saying that you got many of these signatures fraudulently.
Right.
And indeed, some of the signatures were not legitimate, right?
Correct. There was one instance in Hall County where a gentleman admitted to there was a when the election commissioner, election officials there were looking at the signatures in Hall County, said this looks suspicious, and they went back and they investigated and found that this gentleman had actually written down some names out of a phone book. And if you look at it, he's the only person that admitted to or was accused of collecting signatures illegally. And none of the other counties, none of the other election commissioners had any issues with any of this with the signatures. If they were invalid, they threw them out, which is what the process is supposed to do. And so the process that's in place actually worked the way that it was supposed to work. And yet that opened the door to the Attorney General then coming in and saying, oh, we're going to look at all of these other things. And somebody filed a lawsuit who was a former state senator who is very well connected to different people. And so that's where we are with the lawsuit process. The question I have, and I've had for a long time, is during that same petition period, one of the abortion petitions had over 300 people go in and sign an affidavit having their names taken off of that petition because they felt misled, lied to, or pressured into signing. Over 300. Mm-hmm. And how many hundreds of other people just didn't take the time and didn't want to waste the effort to go do that, which to me that lends itself a lot more to there being investigation as to, well, let's look into these circulators who are having all these signatures, the affidavits being filed, but there was none of that. So based on one person in our petition, this whole thing has been dragged into the courts, and yet nothing was done with the other one. And that just seems like an obvious reason to go look. And
these invalid signatures that were on your petition never actually made it to the final count of those to get it on the ballot. So those were never even in question.
They never even made it out of Hall County.
Yeah.
So they were never approved. And so, like I said, the process that's in place to safeguard did what it was supposed to do with signatures that appeared to be, invalid. And there's a long, if you look on the Secretary of State's website, and I don't know all the details, but there are a number of different things that have to happen for a signature to be approved or not approved. And again, it worked.
So throughout this whole process, I mean, I know that you've been actively involved in it and you've been close to it. Although by the way, I want to clarify, you're not here officially speaking on behalf of Nebraskans for Medical Marijuana. This is not, you are just a parent who's gone through all of this, a volunteer that's gone through all of this, right? Right. Have you ever been paid by Nebraskans for Medical Marijuana?
No.
Have you ever gotten any money from them at all?
No.
Okay.
No. It's a completely volunteer organization. And we were at the very beginning with Nebraska Families for Medical Cannabis. We were on that board for that at the beginning. And again, that was a totally nonprofit. It wasn't. So we've gotten no money or anything. This is just about trying to advocate for Will and for so many other Nebraskans.
So I know how this goes somewhat in that you're that actively involved. You hear things, people talk to you off the record, that sort of a thing.
Sure.
Any indication why Senator Ricketts, Governor Pillen, Attorney General Hilders, any idea why they are so opposed to this?
I don't. That's the $1 million question. No pun intended. But it's like, we don't know. We can't understand. We know that talking to national advocates that they have said that this situation in Nebraska is the worst that they've seen throughout the country when it comes to trying to implement just a medical cannabis program. Mm-hmm. And the fight that's been put up, they've not seen it as harsh and as nasty as this has been. And so we don't know. I wish I did.
I mean, Pete Ricketts has said that medical marijuana will kill your child. That's just
we were standing 20 feet away from him when he said that in the Capitol Rotunda.
Yeah,
and it was interesting because the news people there, a lot of them kind of looked over at us to see what our reaction was going to be, and it's like you just want to throw your hands up and say, "How?" You're a man that's an educated man with a lot of power and clout. How can you just throw statements like that out there, knowing that they're knowing that they're not reality?
Yeah. And people that maybe don't know about your son Will. Mm-hmm. Because I think most people or many people know somebody that has epilepsy, mm-hmm. might have a seizure every now and then, and in the vast majority of cases, easily controlled, or maybe not easily controlled, but controlled through other medicines,
sure.
Or the seizures happen, sporadically, very infrequently. But that's not the case with your son, is it?
No, it's not. At one point, Will was probably having, and something people need to understand. A seizure is not just the kind where you see somebody convulsing on the floor. There are lots of different kinds of seizures, and absence seizures and other types of seizures, drop seizures, atonic seizures. So Will has probably, at this point, due to the medicines that he's on, he's probably having in the neighborhood of 75 a day. That might even be conservative, because his brain, we know through EEGs, is like a scrambled mess. The best analogy I can make is it's like a bowl of spaghetti. If you were to look at an EEG of you or I, it would be straight lines, and it would be very, easy to see. Everything's right where it's supposed to be. But for Will, it's like it's all over everywhere. And it literally, the best analogy I can give is like a bowl of spaghetti. And so even when he's not having a seizure that's visible to us, his brain is not firing correctly just about every second of every day. And so that's what we deal with. And it's like, I know people want to know, well, why don't you just move? And I've had this discussion before. It's like, first and foremost, like I said earlier, we've never said medical cannabis was a magic bullet. We want the opportunity to try it, to see with his doctors if it would work. Not everybody's in a position where they can just get up and go. I mean, it's just a reality, and it has nothing to do with not loving our children or loving our kids. We're doing everything that we can with his doctors here. His whole medical team is here. Our support system is here. So it's an easy thing to say, but unless you're living it. And so I just would ask for people's grace.
Okay, so why don't you move? You answer that question. My question then is, why don't you drive an hour and a half south, go into Missouri, and get some, on your own?
You know what? That's a great question, and I won't lie to you and tell you that we haven't thought about it. Here's the deal: for Shelley and I, there is a fear of retribution. There is a fear that because of the stances that we've taken on this and that we've been vocal about this, that we just can't take the risk of him being taken by Adult Protective Services. Will would not survive if the state took him. And so right at this moment in time, we're not willing to take that risk because he won't survive. They won't know how to take care of him. They won't. And again, it is, there's a very real sense that there's just too much fear involved with losing him, and I don't know if that makes any sense or not.
It makes sense.
It's unfortunate because we're supposed to be living in a caring, compassionate society, and we're being told by a lot of people who like to wear their Christianity on their sleeve that when push comes to shove, that's not how they're actually acting towards us. We get chastised. We get all of those same things. If you listen to the Governor's Call-In Show and people call in about medical cannabis, he referred to Will last month that he when he was getting upset with me, he said, Dominic, he said, and I can't, this is good paraphrase, maybe not exact quote, what we're going to do is we're going to get him a pill and it's going to take care of his problem. And that's how he referred to my son, Will, and his problem. Well, his problem is severe intractable epilepsy, and it's not a problem. It's something we live with on a daily basis, and it just showed a complete lack of compassion for me, but not even for me, but for Will first and foremost, and any other patient in the state who is really looking just to find some way of improving their quality of life, and we are looked at still as criminals. And everything is about recreational. This is all about this fear of recreational, and everything gets conflated into that. And I've asked the question before, and I'll ask it of your audience. I've asked the commissioners in my testimony before, why is it that we are more concerned about the hypothetical Nebraskan? Because they could never name one single person who is going to be protected and saved by their prohibitionist policies. But I can give you, off the top of my head, 10, 12, 15, 20 names of people who would benefit, who are live, living Nebraskans, who are simply looking for relief. And yet we put more onus and more oomph into protecting something that might happen to somebody, rather than protecting the people that working for the people that need it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now, it's been a few years since my college days, but I never had a problem finding marijuana back in my college days. I mean, so the fact that they're saying they're protecting anybody, they're really not.
No.
They're really not. What they're doing is just making it a criminal. And your thought there, I didn't think about the retribution, but you're right. I mean, if they wanted to, and I'm not saying that they would. I'm not saying that they would do this, but if they wanted to, the powers that be could go and say, "Oh, look at that! You're supplying a drug to your." Although it's not illegal in Nebraska anymore, is it?
No. If you technically, I mean, reality wise is if you have it now, it's legal, and that's the part of the law that they're trying to change, which is already written into statute. And that's one of the things they want to change is the amount that you can have. But technically, if you go to Missouri, you go to South Dakota or Colorado, and you come back, and if you have a medical card, you have it, you should be, okay. How
do you get a medical card?
You can get, both South Dakota and Missouri do out-of-state non-resident cards. And so you have the opportunity, there is an opportunity in those two states to get a medical recommendation, get a card, get a caregiver card as well, to be able to purchase. So for instance, if we were to do that, we would have to get a caregiver card because wouldn't be able to go into the store to purchase it on his own anyway. So, but again, there's been no guidance given. There are no practitioners in the state of Nebraska willing to put themselves out there right now in order to offer a recommendation, because the Attorney General will not offer any kind of, guidance as to what is okay and what is not okay. And in LB 377, which was Senator Hansen's bill last session, that the Attorney General and the Governor stood up so vehemently and said, this is all about recreational and creating a black market and all of this, that bill would have taken care of all of these things. It answered all of these questions. It answered the recommendation questions, all of these things. But they use their recreational as they're opening it up to recreational. Anyone in this state that wants to use recreationally is already doing it. Mm-hmm. And if you want, and then the commissioners are concerned about, well, what about if a kid gets an edible? They bring in these, and it's like, that's a definite possibility. But how many kids are accidentally into their parents' pharmaceutical prescriptions? It's the same thing. A responsible parent is going to be making sure that if this is a medicine, if they're using it as a medicine, that they're protecting it as a medicine like they would any other medicine. And so, again, they go from medical to it's being this family that just does edibles, and they leave their edibles laying around all over the place for fun. And it's like, that's not the reality.
As a matter of fact, today, of course, we record these weeks before they actually come out, but today on the news, there was a story about Halloween where some kids had they're packaging some edible marijuana but they're making it look like regular candy. Mm-hmm. And where some kid took a packet from their parents' house and took it to school and shared it with some of his buddies, and then all the kids got sick. I mean, so although that's one instance, it could happen.
Absolutely, it could happen. And I believe that in 677 there was stipulations in there as to the packaging. Nobody is asking. There is nobody that's trying to do this commission and offer suggestions that's asking them to put any kind of packaging that would be something that a child would look at and say, oh, this is something that I want. Just like any prescription. Prescriptions aren't put into packaging that would be something that a kid would look at and say, oh, that looks like something I would want. I want to take that because I like the way that I like the picture on that. I totally agree that there's no place for that in a medical process, in a medical situation, and that's not what Nebraska was going to do. I mean, you're right; it could happen, and again, that's in a recreational setting, and a parent that was not responsible. And you're right; it could happen. I'm not about to say that it couldn't, it couldn't.
But when you consider all the people that would help. That one instance there, I mean, and of course, that one instance makes the news. That's
exactly
that's a sensational story,
right? And the commission brings up things about those kinds of things, but they're not looking at states and just looking at the medical side of it. They're the numbers that they use oftentimes conflate both things that are recreational and also maybe medical as well. But again, those are those hypotheticals. It would be horrible. absolutely, if that were to happen. I'm not saying that that's the way it ought to work, but you're legislating against something that if all of our laws were legislated in a way that what ifs, we wouldn't have any laws. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like,
look, there are opiate pain pills that are legal with a doctor's prescription,
right?
That are legal. They could also get in the wrong hands, and that have gotten in the wrong hands. I mean, so anything could happen. But when you take a look at, in my opinion, when you take a look at the people that would benefit from this versus the occasional misuse of it, the good outweighs the bad. 10-1.
Accidents are going to happen. That's just part of life. That's part of living. And again, to the prescription part of it, how many teens, these pharma parties that they have, where are they getting that stuff from? It's pharmaceuticals that they're getting from their parents, taken to a party, thrown in a bucket, and just whatever happens. And this is supposed to be a well-regulated system, and it's also supposed to be a comprehensive system. And what they are putting into place is the most restrictive system in the entire country, even worse than Iowa, which they love to tout Iowa's system. Iowa's system is not even considered a medical cannabis system. So and the people in Iowa are going to the THC shops and things because they're not being able to get the things that they really need, or they're going to another state.
Let's talk about, although there's no dispensaries so far that have opened up in Nebraska, and the Regulatory Commission from the state is tying things up. But on Native American land, they now have legalized, or at least a process in place now, where you'll be able to go and buy medical marijuana on the reservation, right?
Yes, that's correct. And they actually had their first meeting yesterday. Their tribal council swore in 4 of their 5 members of their medical cannabis commission. And lo and behold, there are 4 people that have varied backgrounds. They have background in health. They have background in cannabis. They have, lots of expertise, and they're not prohibitionists. They're being chosen for their knowledge of how to implement a program that is safe and good and is something that people can access, which is absolutely just the complete opposite of what the state of Nebraska is doing. And when the rules for the Omaha tribe get finalized, which may happen at the next meeting, which they're meeting like every third Wednesday, I think is what they said. You're going to be able to lay those two sets of rules and regulations side by side, and you're going to see what a well-regulated program that is intended to have access for patients on one side, and you're going to have a restrictive, nobody should have this situation on the other side. And so Nebraskans are going to have the opportunity at some point, hopefully in the near future, to be able to lay those two things side by side and look at them and say, hey, you know what? This doesn't make any sense what you're doing.
Is this going to be like the casino issue where, they had Ottawa, I remember you just had to drive to Ottawa to go and play a little blackjack.
Right.
And then, of course, the casinos opened in Iowa, and Nebraska went kicking and screaming and all the way. But now it turns out that these casinos in Nebraska are generating an awful lot of tax revenue for the state.
Right.
And it's all voluntary. It just seems to me that if you don't want medical marijuana, if the doctor says, try this, and you don't want to try it, you don't have to.
Right.
I've testified before a few of the boards and the meetings and that. And I testified the fact, as a cancer survivor, after my surgery, I was prescribed an opiate pain pill. And I didn't fill that prescription because I didn't want to mess with that stuff.
Right.
So even then, even if it is legalized and you don't like it, you don't have to take it.
Absolutely.
It just boggles my mind.
Well, to go back to the commission for just a second, the Omaha tribe chose people literally in the field who have testing experience, who have cultivation experience, who have those kinds of things. And in Nebraska, so let's look at, just to give a little bit of a history of the commission, you had 3 members appointed by the governor out of a pool of 3 people. Okay. When it came to the sports commission, they've opened it up to all Nebraskans. And there's another commission that has an opening liquor commission, I believe, opened it up to all Nebraskans. But when it came to medical cannabis, there were 3 people, none of whom we can tell actually applied on their own. They were asked to apply. It was never made a real public deal that, hey, the governor is going to be appointing people to this commission. If you're interested, please come and apply. The first 2 commissioners, both of them in their testimonies, kind of, Senator Kavanaugh was asking the questions like, how did you come to do this? And both of them, in essence, said, hey, they didn't do it on their own. So somebody went looking for them and their name was given. And so there was no open looking at that. The other piece to that is we have in Nebraska and have had for probably the last 5 years since at least, I don't know, maybe longer than that, since the Farm Bill was passed, we have a hemp commission in this state that has a sitting board and has people on that board who grow hemp, who sold hemp, who are experts in the field and in the area of hemp, and in its cannabis cousin would be their expertise. Some members of that commission, the hemp commission, their expertise would be wonderful to have on the cannabis commission, but none of those people were contacted. None of those people were asked. So the expertise that the state already has in place has just been pushed off to the side. And they literally have regulations and rules already written, but they've been kind of, again, shoved into a corner. And I know that from having spoken. And it's like, but that's not what you get from, the powers that be. Okay.
So where do we go from here? What's the latest? How does this move forward? Because as I understand it, as of the time that we're recording this, 2 people have been approved to be dispensaries, right?
To get licenses. Yeah, I think for cultivation licenses. Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I think that's what they were.
So 2 have been,
they're supposed to be 4. So they're behind on that already. So the commission is behind on what it's supposed to be already implementing. So the rules right now the final rules have to be approved go to the governor for his final approval. And then they also go to the attorney general. So it seems like the fox guarding the hen house when it comes to the rules, so then they will be put into place. The caveat here is Senator Kavanaugh filed, what did he file? He's filed some kind of a grievance, that's not the right word, saying that the commission is not following through on what it's supposed to be doing. And it's actually going to be heard at a meeting on the 31st, that part of it, because there's a hearing on how the commission is how it started out. That was initially set up. And then this, this thing that Senator Kavanaugh filed is going to be heard as well at that point in time. So, somebody's going to have to look at the rules and say, wait a minute. I mean, are we really doing what the commission was set up to do? And quite honestly, if the legislature is going to allow the executive to change laws, because that's what they're doing, they're changing laws that are already written in, the amount of product that you can have, whether you have flower or not, that they've put in things about having to do with the recommendations. They've just made this very, very difficult, and literally they're changing statute. Their rules change what is written. And if you look at statute, 437 was there, all laid out. 438 was a regulation part. And if you bring it up online and look at it, there's no wording, there's no verbiage, because that's what the commission was supposed to do. The other one, it's already set. It was set when it was voted on. And yet they're changing the language of this in this rules and regulations that they're trying to set up. Does that make sense?
It's kind of legalese, but I think I know where you're going with this. So, a few minutes left here on this. It seems like on every street corner now you see a CBD store. Mm-hmm. Why do you need the medicinal marijuana when you got CBD? Isn't it the same thing?
No, it's not. Now, I don't know. I've not been in a shop. They are selling things that apparently have THC in them. But for some people, it isn't just CBD. It's the THC within the plant that is what helps people with a lot of their ailments. And it's, again, I'm not a doctor, but we have a system in our bodies called the endocannabinoid system, literally supposed to work with cannabinoids from the cannabis plant, right? And so you have to have all of those things in order for them to work for some people. CBD works fine for some people. Will's been on CBD, doesn't work for him. Mm-hmm. He's on right now the one pharmaceutical that's approved. It's an oil called Epidiolex, and it's just CBD. There's no THC in it. We don't know what kind of an impact it's having for him. He's still having seizures, and he's on, enough medications that we never really know what's working, what's not working. And so it's a struggle. And to try and change medications with Will, the side effects are just sometimes horrific. So I don't know if that answers it. And yeah. I know the Attorney General had a lot of lawsuits and stuff going on with the THC shops. And I know that some of them are trying to push back and say, you know what, we're following what we're supposed to be following. And if you want regulation, put regulations in place, but don't throw away an entire industry for the state of Nebraska that's a revenue producer. If you want to put regulations into place, then work with us and put in regulations that are workable, that don't destroy businesses.
Now, all of this you're going through, mm-hmm. I mean, it's tough enough. When you have a child with severe disabilities. Mm-hmm. By the way, we've talked about this, but until you actually have met Will, I mean, the poor young man, he doesn't walk, right?
Oh, he walks.
Oh, does he walk?
Yeah, Will walks.
I've always seen him in a wheelchair.
Whenever we take him someplace, he's a flight risk. He literally has a life alert bracelet on his ankle in case he were to ever get out of the house or get away from us, so that Sarpy County does that. And he could be tracked if he went to go missing. But we have him in his chair just because it's easier for him and it's easier for us to be able to control his movements. But no, he walks. Okay. He walks around the house, and we take him for walks in the neighborhood.
But he doesn't talk. He
doesn't talk.
You can't communicate or anything like that with him, right?
No. We do believe that he's got cognition going on, because you can say certain things to him from another room, and he will come to you and know. So there are things that he knows. And for us, that's, that you hit on the key right there, Tom. For us, is our belief that cannabis could be the key that opens up the communication piece that we've never had with Will. 23 years old, he's never said mom or dad. So imagine that as a parent. I mean, I would give everything I have to have my wife hear him say mom, just, one time, right? Yeah. And he deserves that opportunity. And we have to keep talking for these people that can't speak for themselves. And quite honestly, Will, over the last 12 years, without having said a word, has spoken to so many people in this state without ever having said anything, just because of his story and who he is and his innocence and the blessing that he is to us as a family.
Dominic, I appreciate you coming on and telling this very, very real human story. I mean, this is, and while you're just one person, there are people out there with cancer, chronic pain, people with, I believe, MS, right? Mm-hmm. And Parkinson's can both benefit from it. Yep. And
Crohn's is another one.
Crohn's another one. So many other ailments, people that can benefit from this. Mm-hmm. And the governor and the attorney general and Senator Ricketts are doing everything in their power to stop these people from getting the help that they need, getting the support that they need. And now let me go off get on my soapbox for a second here and just say, I don't care if you support medical marijuana or not. Okay, it does. You may be as opposed to medical marijuana as Ricketts and Pillin and Hildreth. You might be as opposed to that as that. But 71% of the voters voted for this, and the will of the people is being denied purely from just an all-American red, white, and blue democratic process. This should upset you, in my humble opinion. All right? So, I mean, yes, medical marijuana would benefit people like the Gillen family and so many others in the state, and it would benefit them. But the fact that our will is being taken away from us by these officials.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
We hear this argument that people didn't know what they voted for. That's just a load of bunk. That is totally, it's hogwash. That's not even remotely true. People know exactly what they voted for, and they voted for a comprehensive program. And it was right on the petitions. They had the opportunity to look at them just like any other petition. Everything was spelled out. They know the people know exactly what they voted for, and we don't need 49 people down in Lincoln telling us what we understand and what we don't understand.
And this is how ludicrous that statement is. So even if some people didn't know, and I'll grant you, out of all those votes, some people didn't know what they voted for. Some people just, wouldn't surprise me in the least. And some people didn't know what they were voting for.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're talking 71% of people that voted for it, then you would also have to think that maybe some of the people that voted against it didn't know what they were voting for also.
True.
And then you got to also figure out that just the numbers itself would be that you would need what? You need 29% of the people didn't know what they were voting for? Or 21, I guess. 21% of the people didn't know what they're voting for?
Right.
I mean,
it's just not logical.
That's just ludicrous.
Right.
Yeah. So
anyway. And it's the sad thing is the powers that be they oftentimes are in a situation where they get to make a statement and there's nobody there to give them any kind of pushback or discussion about it. And what they say ends up being, since I said it, this is the truth. And people listen to the senators and they want to trust that they're telling the truth. There was a senator when they were doing the the debate on the commission members, said that every single person that testified in opposition to those two commissioners was wanting recreational marijuana, which was an absolute lie. Not one person did. And when I called him on it, he said, well, I was just talking in generalities. And I'm like, on the floor. I'm like, but sir, people hear you and they listen to you, and words have meaning, and they hear what you say, and they believe that to be the case. And quite honestly, if you understood what a generality was, that's something that happens the majority of the time. When this was nobody, so there was no generality here at all. So,
other than the ballot box next election, is there anything people can do right now, or where does it stand right now as far as the process goes?
Well, we're waiting for the governor and the attorney general to finalize the rules. We're also waiting on Senator Kavanaugh's what he filed, saying that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and the legislature can act if they choose to do that, to act on his the investigation that he's asking for. That's not the right word. I apologize. But he filed it like a grievance. And so we're waiting on those things. And then on the other side, we're waiting for the Omaha tribe, because they are pushing forward, and they're looking to get started first of the year. And a lot of people are going to want to go there.
And once again, I want to reiterate that Dominic is not here as an official spokesperson for Nebraskans for Medical Marijuana.
Nope,
he is a person. He's a dad with a kid that has a very serious ailment and would like to see his kid get some relief.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean,
who wouldn't, right?
Yeah,
you would think all things being equal, you would think that that would
do
be
whatever
the thing.
they can to take care of their sick kid.
Right.
Anyway, Dominic, thank you very much. Make sure you spread the word, share the podcast, get it out there, let people know about it. Go and check out the YouTube channel too. YouTube channel's got a lot of great podcasts, maybe that you might have missed along the way. Go and maybe was the weather's getting wintry here. It's just sort of like go down that rabbit hole and check out all the past podcasts that we've had. A lot of interesting people in there. Anyway, thank you for joining us on Becca's Talking. Till next time. Take care, and bye, y'all.